Okay.
Hello, thank you for joining me today. My name is Dan Guthridge, and I'm going to be talking to you about the Chicago Bears and their rich history. Let's set the mood for a second. It is a cool November day. Families old and young are sitting in front of television, anticipating the beginning of a Sunday afternoon ritual. This ritual is watching the Chicago Bears game. After the kickoff occurs, a conversation begins how long these people have been watching this very special team. The young children are amazed that their grandparents were fans when they were young, because the Bears are the most storied franchise in history. The discussion turns to the true meaning of being a Bears fan. It is explained that a true fan is one who remains loyal with the successes and failures of a team. The young child begins to ask about past coaches and players. The faces of the older generations in the room light up with excitement, and the story begins. Now, a little bit of my background. I've been fascinated by the history of Chicago Bears since I was a young child. When I was young, the Bears were in the prime back in the mid-'80s. I've read and studied many different types of literature concerning the Chicago Bears. Let's walk through the talking points for today. First, I will discuss the first years of the Bears organization. Then I'll go through the rough years they experienced. Then I will discuss how the team found success in the 80s and 90s. And finally, discuss the experiences of the Chicago Bears in the 2000s. Let's start off in the 20s. George Halas founded pro football and the Decatur Staleys in 1920. That's ironic because we're in Decatur, Illinois. In 1921, the Decatur Staleys became the Chicago Staleys. The Staleys played at Wrigley Field and won the title. Wrigley Field is where the Chicago Cubs play and haven't won a title since '43. The Staleys renamed the Chicago Bears in 1922 and made their first player deal with a man named Ed Healy. In 1925, the team played 16 games, traveling coast to coast. In the 30s, the Chicago Bears opened their first offices in downtown Chicago. George Halas resigns as head coach, and they hire Ralph Jones in 1930. The team plays their first indoor game in late 1930. In 32, the Bears win their first NFL championship. In the 40s, the Bears win their second NFL championship at the beginning of the decade. From 40 to 46, the Bears are referred to as the Monsters of the Midway, and the team is known as the Dynasty from there on out. The book titled Bear Down Chicago Bears is published in 1941. That's also the Bears theme song. Johnny Lou Jack sets passing record with 468 yards in 1949. Now that I've discussed the early years, it's time to move on to the next 34 years. These years are referred to as the rough years. From 1940 to 1969, Patty Driscoll is named coach in 1950. The Bears lose to the Giants for the championship in 1956. In 65, Dick Butkus and Gale Sayers are drafted. From 70 to 81, the first game is in 71. The first game is played at Soldier Field. Jack Paraday is the first non-Bear named as a coach in 1974. In 77, the Bears make the playoffs after a 14-year absence. Neil Armstrong, not the Neil Armstrong, different Neil Armstrong, is named the new coach in 1978, not the astronaut. The rough years forced the Bears organization to make some significant changes within their structure, including trading players and an important coaching change. From 82 to 89, Neil Armstrong left the team. Ditka, the coach, is named head coach of the Bears in 82. George Halas, founder of the Bears, passes away in 83. And the Bears achieved their first playoff win since 1963 and 1984. The Bears finally won a Super Bowl in 1986, defeating New England 46-10, and legendary player Walter Payton retires from football. In the 90s, Kevin Butler becomes the all-time leading scorer. He was the kicker. In 93, Dave Wannstedt becomes the new head coach. In 1999, after 6 disappointing seasons, Wannstedt leaves the team and Dick Duran is named coach. The beloved Walter Payton passes away in 1999. He had 16,726 yards and 110 rushing touchdowns. From 2000 to 2004, the team had a very disappointing season in 2000. They were 5-11. In 2001, the Bears achieved a first round bye in the playoffs, but eventually lost to the second round to the Philadelphia Eagles, 33-19. Renovation of Soldier Field begins in 2002, and the Bears play their home games in Champaign at Memorial Stadium at the University of Illinois. Also in 2002, the Bears joined the newly formed NFC North, which was formerly the NFC Central. In 2003 season, rookie Rex Grossman emerged as a new quarterback. He was a Florida Gator. He was 6'1", and he was drafted in the first round of the draft with the 22nd pick. In 2004, Jerron was fired, and Lovie Smith became the first African American coach for the Bears. Lovie was formerly the defensive coordinator for the Rams. From 2005 to present, Lovie Smith's first season was rather disappointing. He went 11-5 and lost in the first round of the playoffs. In 2006, the Bears won their first 7 games and won their first playoff game since 1994. The 2006 season ended with a trip to the Super Bowl that ended in defeat 29-17 to the Indianapolis Colts. In 2009, Jay Cutler joined the team as quarterback. He's also a former Vanderbilt player, and he's a diabetic quarterback. After a disappointing season, Julius Peppers joined the team the next season as a defensive end. The Bears advanced to the NFC Championship in 2010. They lost this game. Also in 2012, Lovie Smith was fired, and Mark Trestman was hired as the new head coach of the Bears. In 2012, defensive icon Brian Urlacher was retired as a Bear. Let's go over what we talked about today. First, I discussed the early years of the Chicago Bears organization. Second, I talked about their rough years. Third, I spoke about the successes during the 80s and 90s. And lastly, I discussed the team's experiences during the past decade. Again, thank you for your time, and I appreciate speaking with you today. Thank you.
Thank you.